Hello everyone, welcome to another video, and we're going back and doing another Inside Star Citizen reaction because in the last quarter of an hour the new Drake Ironclad video has just been posted, and there's been a lot of talk over the last few days about a new large Drake ship, a lot of speculation about it, and then at the weekend CIG confirmed that they'll be talking about a new Drake vessel, and here it is. So what we're going to do is we're going to get into it. We're going to see what this ship is, and we'll talk about it as we go along. So let's hear what Jared has to say.
It's part 2 of our Invictus Launch Week coverage as we look beyond the event to the new offering being unveiled at this year's Drake DefenseCon. The far superior brand excluded from the usual Invictus festivities because it's too damn cool.
Obviously, Jared is a Drake fan. I know there's a lot of people out there who really dislike Drake. I happen to have a soft spot for them. I love my Vulture. I did have a Corsair at one point, but I upgraded it to something else. I've had a Cutter in the past. I've got a Drake Mule. I like Drake. I think they're good ships, but, you know, taste is a personal thing.
I said it, and I'm tired of pretending it's not true. Drake for life.
These sentiments were recorded in April before that rap beef stuff, and Disco would like it known that K-Dot is king. Hashtag Westside. Also, that David is the best. Woohoo! Now we resume the program.
Let's force John Crew to talk about it now.
So in the Star Citizen universe, we have a lot of cargo ships, but they're sort of concentrated around the lower end of cargo hauling, sort of the low hundreds, SCU and below, and the very high end where there's multi-thousands. There's a mix of cargo ships which have their cargo on the inside, ones on the outside like the Hull series, and we really wanted to bring something different where it sort of sits right in the middle. It's a nice progression step and facilitates both internal and external loading of cargo, which is where the Drake Ironclad comes in.
Okay, interesting idea. So we've got a new cargo ship. The Ironclad is rad.
So the Drake Ironclad is the kind of next step up for Drake cargo ships. It kind of builds on what the Caterpillar brings, but in a much larger form.
I did see someone comment, I think it was on X the other day, saying that what they've seen looks like it might be the super Caterpillar or whatever they said, and this looks to be the image that they'd seen, and apparently it's quite an old image that was put up years and years ago, and yeah, looks like CIG have started to work on it.
The Drake Ironclad is a 6-person multi-crew armoured freighter. A large proportion of the ship is dedicated to the cargo bay at the front of it, which has both a front ramp for loading and unloading cargo and small vehicles on the ground, as well as a retractable roof for doing that in space.
I like that. I actually really like this. Quite a wide ramp as well, which is good. But look at that space on top of the ship. This, combined with the Argo tractor, could be a very interesting combination going forward.
With EVA as well.
Little tight entrances to cargo ships doesn't necessarily lend itself to when you're out in deep space and you're trying to quickly move some cargo from one person's ship into your ship. Really, you want as much kind of access to be able to do that as you possibly can. So
I'm also just in my head as I'm watching this, I'm getting like visions of people using the Crucible, I think it is, that's going to be the base building ship, correct me if I'm wrong on that, alongside the Ironclad as well, to like ferry materials or whatever it is that we're going to be able to do with bases in the future. Like having those two ships together feels right in my head right now, and this is literally just like the first view of this. So yeah, I'm quite taken with this instantly, I have to say.
By having this kind of much larger opening on top of the ship, it allows us to kind of bring cargo in much easier.
It's a massive
so its role
cargo
being
bay.
a sort of armoured freighter comes from 2 distinct ways. One, the cargo itself is more protected. It's within the cargo bay that has the armoured roof section that covers it. So unlike, say, a Hull C where the cargo's on the outside, you can load it from the outside but then protect it with the Ironclad.
It's also more heavily armoured than the Caterpillar, so it kind of gives a little bit more security to your kind of precious cargo.
The exterior, very classic Drake brutish styling, a whole lot of engines and a lot of framework and quite thin structural elements support the rest of the ship. Very bare bones styling. It doesn't have lots of nice padding. It's all there and exposed, and it's really just sort of rugged and to the point. So the Ironclad is really three distinct areas. You have all the accommodation in the rear sort of third of the ship. The front 2/3 is really just this cargo bay with the front entrance and the retractable roof. And then you have the command module, which has seats for the crew, plus a few little jump seats for everyone else.
And of course, as we saw there was a Pisces sitting in the front of that. So it looks like there's almost the potential for this to double up as a little bit of a small vehicle carrier. Obviously, we've got the Drake Kraken coming somewhere down the line. This looks like it could act as a go-between or a step towards that as well. And I'm sure, you know, they've acknowledged that in the design. If you've got a top-loading bay, that's going to happen. So looks like there's going to be lots of will it fit videos coming up when this ship eventually comes out, which obviously I doubt is going to be anytime soon, but let's see what they say about that.
Module is there to steer the ship when it's attached, and the command module serves as the escape pod as well. The only time you really want to detach it is in an emergency. It's not designed to be your sort of primary ship flying around.
That's a really interesting idea.
Gives you a little bit of a get out of jail free card. If you're transporting stuff that is quite valuable, quite sought after in maybe some of our less desirable systems, what it allows you to do is kind of have a little bit of security. So if you're getting attacked or you're getting yourself into trouble, if you want to save yourself, you can kind of jettison your cargo and try and get out of Dodge and kind of get out to safety. And I think that's like a really important thing as we get closer to Death of a Spaceman.
So does the command module have a quantum drive? I doubt it by the looks of it. So it's probably going to be more a case of hightailing it to a nearby space station or down to a planetary facility or something. But yeah, that's a really, really interesting gimmick there. And yeah, I'm very, very intrigued by this.
With some of the recent tech that's come online, this brought us one step closer to implementing command modules properly. So not only will you see this detachable command module feature on the Ironclad, but as well it will happen on the Caterpillar.
Interior-wise, you've kind of got two entrances onto the ship. You can either enter via the command module, and that takes you straight into a kind of corridor section. It's kind of like almost like a mezzanine. You can either go up to the habitation area, which is top floor of the ship, gives you like super nice views out both the kind of cargo out the front and the rear of the ship, or you can kind of come down the ship into the main habitation area. Alternatively, you can enter through the dock and collar airlock, which is on the opposite side of the ship.
Okay, so that bit, particularly with the cockpit, as they said there, very much like the Caterpillar. I didn't realise that the Caterpillar module was intended to detach at some stage, so that's obviously a continuation of that idea. But even just looking at that with like the steps down from the cockpit area, it's very, very similar to the Caterpillar as well. So keeping with the design language, but doing something a little bit different with it, which, you know, I think that's part of what we love about when CIG design these ships and design variants or new ships for a particular manufacturer. So yeah, it's good so far.
At the rear of the interior of the ship, we've kind of got the heart of the engines. It's the big kind of engineering area where we've got all of the kind of main functional components needed for moving such a large ship. And then if you kind of come slightly further forward, got we call it the kind of like the command deck. It's not a bridge, you can't fly the ship from it. It's where you operate the tractor beams. It's where it kind of gives you good views out over the front and into space. You've got the tractor beam turrets, but also, visually you can kind of stand in this area or sit in this area and look out over the front and over the bow of the ship and kind of really see what you're trying to pull in or what you're trying to capture into you.
Yeah, that's unusual in terms of design, because you would expect like that large structure in the middle at the top to be the bridge, as it were. But they've decided to opt for still having the separate command module, and then having a part that structurally looks like the bridge of a ship. Like if we think about the Idris, it kind of evokes that kind of shape as well. If you think about down in the distribution centers, you've got that whole command section above the elevator as well, which this is kind of evoking that idea more. And the fact is such a larger space than the bridge as well, but obviously there's more functionality needed here, as you said, controlling the tractor beams. I wonder how many there are for this. Like there's going to be at least 2 there. I think we saw 4 control stations there, so I want to see more. Honestly, this is one that actually I can't wait till we can get to walk around it as well, because this suddenly is giving me ideas. And I'm not someone who wants to spend real money on bigger ships, but there are a couple that tempt me so far. The aforementioned Kraken is one of them, but the Endeavour is on that list as well. The Irastra, which obviously is a bit, probably a similar size, maybe a bit smaller than this, and now this is just suddenly throwing a spanner in the works, and I'm sitting here saying I refuse to spend the amount of real money to get up to not the next level of concierge, but the one after that, and now I'm just like, damn.
Your cargo hold. As we come downstairs, we've got a little kind of covered area at the rear of the cargo hold, and that is where you can store a couple of small ground vehicles or some of your equipment for moving vehicles and cargo around. And then you're into the main cargo hold of the ship, and this takes up the majority of the interior space, is this large cargo hold. One of the things that we were kind of really keen to do was give lots of different views and different angles down into this cargo hold. Again, as we're exploring slightly less lawful systems, we wanted to give the players as much opportunities as we can to kind of be safe aboard their own ship. So either side of the cargo hold, we've got these gantries that run completely front to rear on the ship, and they give great view down into your cargo bay. They also give that opportunity of, if there's someone tries to board you via the cargo bay, it gives you some nice cover opportunities. And we've also...
I like that that's actually coming into ship design now, rather than just like... And before I say what I was about to say, actually, they're not... Everything they do isn't just purely aesthetic. There's a lot of thought that goes into the design of the ships, and sometimes they get it right. Occasionally they get it wrong. I'd say most of the time they get it right. But the idea now that they've got to design ships in a way that you're going to be able to protect them, you're going to be able to know what's going on within your own ship. I like that design element being added into it, with all the, as he said, lots of lines of sight, lots of windows here, the gantries, the command tower. This is a ship, as it's also armoured as well, so you're, in theory, going to be carrying valuable goods in here. It makes sense that you're going to want to be able to protect this ship to the best that you can. And then, you know, if everything goes all tits up, you can jettison via the command deck, or potentially if you've got a Pisces or something landed there as well.
So got a few little windows that kind of look down into it as well. As you move to the kind of like the very front, the very nose of the ship, those gantries lead into a kind of secure cargo area. It's somewhere that's a little bit more difficult to get to when you kind of enter the ship. The big thing we were referencing when we were looking at it was this idea of police evidence rooms.
Okay.
So there's kind of individual cages where you could put your most secure cargo, whatever it might be.
Oh, that's a cool
in this
idea.
area, and it would make it quite difficult to try and breach in or out of that area. So it gives us just somewhere a little bit more secure for kind of smaller cargo items.
That's
Finally,
cool.
at the very
That's a
front,
good
you've got
idea.
access to one of the main turrets and the tractor beam turret.
The
Brilliant.
biggest attraction for me with it is just the versatility of the cargo space. From a good citizen law standpoint, it is a cargo ship, but also that retractable roof and the tractor beams on board it give it some less legal opportunities for perhaps taking other people's cargo ships in space and on the ground. At the time of recording, we're also exploring a more military-themed variant of the Ironclad. Doesn't have the name yet, so we'll just call it the Drake.
Ironclad Assault.
Compared to the base ship, this has been developed to support ground assault operations.
Oh.
It has additional turrets covering the upper and lower surfaces to provide more fire support. And the front section of the cargo area has been redesigned to enable our largest vehicles in game to be deployed from it, such as the tank. In addition,
wow.
the cargo
4,
bay has been
5.
reduced in size to facilitate a onboard repair facility. So for those of you who want to have a journey in the cargo profession, traditionally you would start out in something, say like a Hull A. The next step up from there really is sort of into Drake Caterpillar territory. So you're doing roughly a 8 to 10 times jump in cargo capacity. From there, the Ironclad sits nicely between those smaller ships and the much larger bulk carriers such as the Hull C, and then ultimately you get to things like the Hull D, E, and Kraken at the end of the cargo career.
You said Kraken.
He said Kraken.
Yes.
Is that a hint at anything?
It's not a hint at anything.
Oh, got excited
The
then.
Ironclad makes the Kraken easier.
So building out
Fair.
the Ironclad does,
Yeah.
of course, kind of help us with building out the Kraken. I think increasing that visual library of assets that we can pull from and use in a Drake manufacturer at the right scale is super valuable for when we move on to the larger ships.
Okay, that just pure gave me chills because the Kraken is a ship that I absolutely love the concept of. I really want one. When it does get released into the game, it's going to be like my main aim is going to be working towards being able to buy a Kraken in game. Because again, I typically don't spend that sort of money on ships. I just can't justify it. And the fact that this is basically a big stepping stone towards the Kraken, that excites me a lot. That really does. I just want to go back to what they were talking about the military variant there. That's really cool. Basically a tank carrier. Again, it'll probably double up as an aircraft carrier as well for certain size ships. I also wonder if they're going to be able to incorporate maybe kind of a lot of seats like a dropship in there somewhere as well. That maybe there's a bit towards the back, maybe where they've got like the ground vehicle storage at the back could be a dropship area that maybe literally could descend down to the floor. John, hello. But yeah, that's cool. I'm one of those people, I think I've said it in a video before, I don't always like there being lots of different variants of the ships. But having 1 or 2 variants of something like this that has an obvious opportunity to do multiple different things, I think really works. This goes on sale tonight. I'm going to have a look at the price. I expect this to be over like the $1,000 mark, so it wouldn't be one that I'm going to be picking up, but I have a feeling this one will do quite well. And it looks amazing.
Of course, in non-Drake related news, players in this year's event probably noticed the long-awaited RSI Polaris touring around the Stanton system. Well, it's not quite flight ready yet, but we thought we'd ask the guys for a status update all the same and see if we can't get a closer look at the progress being made while we do it.
Okay, let's hear about it.
We really wanted to have some form of the exterior of the Polaris at Invictus launch week.
I said this on Twitter. I've never had any real interest in the Polaris. It's not one that's come across my radar as one that I'd be looking out when it's going to be released. But then on day one of Invictus, like walked up into that hall and saw it. And once I could see the size of it, the shape of it, where the hangar doors are, I wanted to get inside the ship and see what it was like inside. And obviously the interior isn't quite finished yet, but yeah, I'm more interested in it now than I was. Again, it's not necessarily one that I think I'll be interested in picking up, but certainly am very keen to see what they're doing with it.
We wanted to mix up the capital ships on display this year.
Being a big kind of military show, it made perfect sense to be able to kind of show it off in its best light. We pushed quite hard to get the exterior to a point where we're happy to show it publicly.
This meant we've prioritized doing the exterior over the interior. So the exterior you see is pretty much final art. All it is missing is really the damage setup, as I'm sure people have tried to do. It is currently invulnerable, or hopefully invulnerable in game.
Visually, I think not only have we been trying to get it out so we can show it, but we've also tried to kind of really push the quality of the exteriors of some of our kind of like large capital ships. And what that has meant is that we needed to focus a few more artists than what we'd normally put on the exterior of a ship, just to make sure we kind of hit that quality bar and we hit it on time.
Yeah, they really did. It looks amazing.
It's pretty close to being Lot Zero, which means that the majority of the main modeling's done. There's still a whole bunch of decal work, the finer details, what we call as POM details, pass needs to be done, and that really kind of helps to elevate the kind of like the close read. I think the distance read and the mid reads are like brilliant, and to be fair, the close read when you get up and personal is looking really, really good. It's just we've still got that kind of like final sprinkle of polish to go on.
That's fair. That's fair.
With the focus on the exterior and pushing that as far as we could in the time we had, the interior is not quite as far along. It is more around the grey box stage, but the people we put on the exterior now will be moving on to the interior.
Normally on a vehicle, as we try to kind of keep the development stages in line throughout the kind of like the life cycle of its development, it means that the interior isn't, it's not at the same level that the exterior is.
We've been focusing on the core traversal areas of the ship.
The majority of the rooms have now been worked up. I think there's maybe 2 or 3 rooms that are still in white box that still need, a decent amount of kind of modelling and work doing to them. But
now, considering on the live, I think it was last week, he promised it would be ready for, was it for IAE or for 4.0? I think it was IAE in November. He basically like promised that it would be ready for November. So that gives us we're in May now. So that gives them 6 months to get the whole of the interior done. I mean, it's not impossible. Obviously, they need a big team on it, and it sounds like they've got a big team on it. And they've got basic layouts and everything. So hopefully they can get it out in time to a good quality. So look, get ready for IAE in November for us to be able to finally get on board this one.
The rest of the rooms now are kind of getting to the point where we're pretty close to grey box.
So the bridge, the main corridor,
I like the way that closes.
Area,
that's really nice.
Cargo bay, torpedo rooms, and all the turrets. So these are a bit further along than some of the more secondary rooms like the brig and the medical bay.
It's going to have a brig, cool.
When you think of the Polaris, like its key points are the torpedoes. And I think that's been an area that has needed quite a lot of iteration on, and we're not quite there yet. One of the things that we're kind of really trying to make sure feels good from a player's point of view is the kind of like the loading of the torpedoes and seeing them kind of be from in your cargo hold to being in the kind of like loading mechanism and then being ready to fire. So on the kind of like lower deck and front half of the vehicle, we've got these big torpedo loaders, and that's an area that it's needed quite a lot of iteration to make sure it feels right, and we are still in that process. It's not kind of fully signed off. We're not completely happy with that area, but it certainly kind of makes up the heart of the ship. Otherwise, on the interior, the main upper deck is kind of really starting to come on. The engineering section is another kind of area that I think is really important in our capital ships and kind of getting to a level that we're happy with. From the kind of concept into production, we have opened up the bridge of the ship a little bit. One of the things we wanted to do was when you kind of enter onto the bridge, this should feel kind of like super exciting and super rewarding to the player.
Those views are going to be amazing.
Get one of these ships, we want it to feel like they are kind of really living that kind of military life dream. So we've spent a bit of time kind of opening it up, giving some nicer views as you kind of enter onto the bridge itself.
Can I just say, I really, really like the look of these new HUDs for those control surfaces. They are nice. I hope that is what they're going to look like in game. That's very, very futuristic, very Star Trek Discovery era Star Trek. I like that.
What we really wanted to do was kind of make sure that the player views are good, the captain gets a great kind of view out the front, and make sure that navigating around that area, especially as kind of more and more kind of multi-crew gameplay systems come online, we want to make sure that there's enough space on that bridge to have not just the captain and the pilot, but a whole crew there.
Compared to the concept mesh, one not big change but unresolved area was the hangar opening. It's quite a complex shape to open, so we spent a lot of time working on that, but that's all resolved. And then another thing we are looking at in the future is actually doing some more upgunning of the turrets. So it is not just a torpedo boat. it can sort of hold its own against other capital ships with its turrets.
Cool.
You'll see more of that as we get closer to releasing it, which we are aiming for at IAE this year.
There you go. There you go.
So, what did we learn this
Awesome.
week? Well, we learned that the Drake Ironclad is the next cargo ship from Drake designed to fill that gap between the Caterpillar and the larger Hull series offerings. That working on it helps to flesh out resources needed to bring the long-awaited Kraken to life in the future. And that the Polaris is coming along pretty nicely, even if it's not Drake, which we didn't learn was the best because we all already knew that in our hearts.
But Disco says KDOT is the best.
And with that, this very long 17-episode season of Inside Star Citizen comes to a close. We said we'd go straight through until Alpha 323 was out, and we did that, and then some more. And it's time for our team to take a breather, catch up on some admin work, and begin working on the next great season of ISC that'll start up again on June 20th. So for Inside Star Citizen, I'm Jared Huckabee.
4-week break.
Thanks for taking the time to let us share the process of game development with you each week, and we'll see you when we get back.
So does that mean when they come back in June, we're going back to the road to 4.0? Is that where things are going to be going? Because obviously they have said that that's going to be third quarter this year, which, you know, technically runs July through to end of September. So that's exciting. That's very, very exciting. Again, as always, let's just get through the end of the video and then I'll give my final thoughts on what we've seen so far today. Looks like it's just a summary of this last season. Is it Jared? Go on! It is! Awesome. Brilliant. I would love it if at CitizenCon he turned up wearing one of those spacesuits. Jared, if you somehow manage to see this, please wear one of those at CitizenCon at some point, because that'll be hilarious. So, 2 ships talked about there. I wasn't expecting the Polaris stuff in it because I didn't really look into too much detail about what the video was about. I just saw the tweet go out, very briefly saw the email earlier in the week. So I was focused on the new Drake ship. I'm, as I said earlier, the Drake ship is really interesting me. I definitely will follow the development of that one. Look forward to maybe getting a walk around to that, although I've got a feeling it's going to be one of those ones that when it's ready, it's ready. They're not just going to stick it in the hall for us to look at and wonder when it's coming out. So I've got a lot of high hopes for that, and I'll look forward to talking to a few people about that. And don't forget, guys, let me know down in the comments below, you know, what do you think of the Ironclad? Is it one that interests you? Can you see yourself or your organisation making use of it? I've got a feeling a lot of you will actually say yes to that one. And how many of you will be rushing to buy one as soon as it comes out? And as for the Polaris, you know, it sounds like they're putting themselves under a little bit of pressure with it. You know, 6 months to get it all done, especially if there's like a major area that they themselves aren't completely happy with. Like that's a lot to have to do. So let's just get a picture of the old Ironclad up there. So yeah, that's awesome. Ships are the lifeblood of Star Citizen, and the financial lifeblood of Star Citizen as well, obviously. But they keep coming up with stuff that, you know, we've got over 200 ships in the game already, and yet they still keep coming up with new stuff, with more interesting stuff, with stuff that does something that we've done before but does it in a different way or does it better. I'm just looking at that image now and I'm just like, yeah, that is a really awesome looking ship, and I can't wait can't wait to get to see that in game. And as always, you know, if I know someone who has one of these in the future and they need a crew member, my hand's going to be in the air. Absolutely. So yeah, that's going to be it for me today. Don't forget, guys, I did put out a video for new people who are thinking about playing the game, and just some guide on how to go about choosing their starter ship. So if you do know anyone who's new to the game, let them know about that video. It will be one of the cards at the end, so you can direct them straight to it. And I'll be taking a couple of weeks break from videos after this one because I've got Comic-Con this weekend. And I've got a couple of other bits that I need to get, including potentially a weekend away as well. So it may be 2 or 3 weeks before the next video comes out, but there will be more. So as always, don't forget, if you have enjoyed this one, give it a like. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and come and find me on my social media, over on X, over on Instagram, find me on Twitch. Come and talk to me about the game and these ships. Let me know what you think. And until next time, you know, happy hunting, everyone. I'll see you all soon.